Shalom. It's good to see you all here this morning, and it's good to be seen by you, including those of you who I can't see myself because you're watching from home. Seeing and being seen, it is a very human need. Now, of course, I know that there are some people who cannot see, and for them I would simply translate the verb seeing to one or more of the other human senses that they use to recognize the presence of another human being. But what I want to talk about seeing this morning is because that is the word that our Torah portion this morning almost literally begins and ends with. The portion opens with Moses saying to the Israelites, "See, this day I set before you a blessing and a curse. A blessing if you obey the commandments of the Lord, and a curse if you do not obey them." And the portion ends with one of the 5 times that the holidays of the Jewish calendar are listed. It concludes the list of festivals with these words: 3 times a year on the Feast of Unleavened Bread, on the Feast of Weeks, and on the Feast of Booths, all your males shall be seen by the Lord in the place that he will choose, and they shall not be seen empty-handed, but each will bring his own gift. So I want to talk first about this last use of the word seeing. 3 times a year on the pilgrimage festivals, the Israelites would make a pilgrimage to Jerusalem to be seen by God at the temple. And the Talmud suggests a playful second meaning, because as we know, the Hebrew in the Torah has no vowels. The words can change meaning if we supply different vowels. So the word that we read as to be seen by God can also be read as they will see God if the vowels are changed. And so the Talmud suggests one used to go to the temple not just to be seen by God, but also to see God, to have an encounter with God. Of course, we don't believe that God can literally be seen. No one can see me and live, God tells Moses. But you can imagine the awesome experience our ancestors had when they went up to the Temple Mount and stood in the grand courtyard with all of its awesome furnishings and saw the crowds of people coming to worship and heard the Levite choir singing psalms to the accompaniment of the Levite orchestra playing beautiful music, bringing a gift to God and saying thank you for being alive, for the harvest, for family and friends, or for whatever other reason. What an awesome experience our ancestors must have felt, and no doubt they felt God's presence there with them. Seeing, let's say, with the spiritual camera lens that captures transcendent waves of luminescence. So our ancestors would gather at the temple to see God and to be seen by God. We all want to be seen, to really be seen, for exactly who we are, just as we are, to be understood, to be appreciated, to be recognized, not just superficially, not based on the color of our hair or our eyes or our skin or our age, not for the clothes we're wearing, not for how much money we have or don't have, or for the size of our home or the type of car we drive. We want to be seen and understood and appreciated for who we are inside. The Haftarah that we will read on Rosh Hashanah tells the story of a woman named Hannah who was childless and desperately wanted to have a child. So she went to the shrine dedicated to God in the town of Shiloh and prayed there. She prayed her heart out to God, but though her lips were moving, she did not pray out loud. And the prophet Eli looked at her and thought she was a crazy woman talking to herself. "No," she told him, "I'm not crazy. I'm desperate, and I'm praying to God from my heart." And that's when Eli the prophet saw Hannah for who she really was. He realized his superficial judgment of her was in error. It was based only on appearance. Hannah was seen by Eli, now clearly, and she was seen by God, and God granted her a child who became the great prophet Samuel. Our ancestors came to the temple to be seen by God, and God, of course, can see through the veneer, the outside, the appearance, to the soul. That's what they came for. And they also came to get a glimpse of God's presence in their lives and in the world, to sense that, yes, there is a creator, and the world is not just a random, chaotic mess. There is meaning and order and purpose, and our Creator has charged us with a purpose in life. And at least a few encounters would entail a mutual exchange of appreciation, affection, and perhaps even love. Maybe seeing a relative or a friend you hadn't seen for a long time. Seeing and being seen, it's a fundamental human need. Now let's consider how the word seeing appears at the beginning of our Torah portion. See, this day I set before you blessing and curse. Blessing if you obey the commandments, and a curse if you do not obey the Lord. At first, as Rabbi Strauss suggested earlier, we modern Jews might reasonably ask, is this really how the world works? If I follow the rules, will I be rewarded? And if I break the rules, will I be punished? That certainly does not appear to be how the world actually works, the world that we live in today. But let's look at the rules that Moses goes on to describe. First, destroy all the idols and false gods that you see. Do we still idolize some things or some people today? If so, we are commanded to stop that. Only God, who created a beautiful world and demands of us that we preserve and protect it. Only God, who commands us to love our neighbor as ourselves. Only God deserves our unwavering loyalty. Second, worship God only in the place that God will choose. Of course, in biblical times, this meant the temple in Jerusalem. But since the temple was destroyed, we have gathered in synagogues. But even then, worship is not restricted to synagogues only, not just buildings. The buildings are not inherently sacred. They're only holy when we feel God's presence in them. And as our ancestor Jacob realized the night he ran away from home and slept on a rock, the place he slept on turned out to be holy because he felt God's presence there. Nothing special really about that place. Any place can be holy when you experience God's presence there. It becomes a place that God has chosen. Now, of course, the Temple Mount has remained a special sacred place for Jews for thousands of years. But in the absence of being able to go there in person, we have found holiness in places all around the world. Third, do not follow after false prophets. Prophets who tell you it's okay to break the commandments. Prophets who tell you it's okay to lie, to cheat, to steal, to treat other human beings disrespectfully, perhaps because of their race, or their religion, or their gender. Moses even warns the Israelites against doing this if your friends or relatives tell you it's okay to do it. It's not okay to follow false prophets, even if all your friends and family are doing so. And finally, if there are poor people in your society, Moses tells us, it is your responsibility to help them. Do not abandon them. So to review, destroy the false gods that you might be tempted to worship. Worship God in a holy place. Do not follow false prophets who turn you away from doing what is right, and take care of the poor among you. What do all these things have in common? What do they have in common with the conclusion of our Torah portion, where the verb to see is used again. If we follow these rules, we will create a society that cares for each other. We will support those in need. We will comfort those who are distraught. We will find ways to help those who have lost their jobs, who can't pay their rent or put food on their tables. If we follow these rules, we will experience God's presence in our lives, especially in the holy places that we create for that purpose. But we can also experience God's presence in our own everyday activities if we, like our ancestor Jacob, can wake up each morning and say, "Surely God is in this place, and I did not know it." We can even experience God's presence from our homes, connecting with each other over the internet to pray together, creating a virtual holy space through technology. If we follow the rules that Moses gave us, we will not be led astray to do harm to others, to be thoughtless and cruel, to promote prejudice and bigotry against others, but rather we will work together to foster kindness and compassion, justice and equity in our city, in our state, and in our country. What we cannot do right now, at least not safely, is gather here together in large numbers in the sacred space that we call Beth Yeshurun, in this building. It is good to see those of you who are here this morning, and I wish I could see all of you watching at home. To see and to be seen is such a powerful human desire, but we will one day return to our building. The prophets promised a return from the Babylonian exile and a return to our home in Israel. And indeed, we did return from the Babylonian exile. And in the last century, we returned again to our homeland. And so too, we will return to our home here in Beth Yeshurun. But in the meantime, even though we cannot see and be seen together in this space right now, we can at least connect with each other through modern technology such as this live stream service. Thank God we live in a generation where such technology exists. Even though we cannot be physically together, and especially since we cannot be together physically, we yearn to reach out with whatever means we have available and connect with each other. At times like this, community is even more important. It is more important for our emotional, our spiritual, and our mental health. Congregation Beth Yeshurun is our spiritual home. But it's not about this building. It's about us. It's about helping each other in times of need. It's about organizing to help others in Houston. It's about enriching our lives with Jewish wisdom. It's about connecting to God. And it's about connecting with each other. It is about seeing and being seen. Shabbat Shalom.